Well, history was made this weekend, big time. This is going to change the way I view Super Rugby going forward. That's how big two of these results were. I'm talking about Moana Pacifica versus Waratahs. The only time in history Moana Pacifica have won back-to-back, but also the Crusaders getting their maiden win in Fiji. So much action to break down. Let's get to it. I've already covered Chiefs versus Reds. That was the game of the week that you all wanted me to break down in the poll, so check out the link below for that. But suffice to say, I don't know, man. I think that the Reds could win the rematch. There was a questionable yellow card against the Reds that did kind of turn the game a little bit in the favor of the Chiefs. But even without that, you felt that the Chiefs were going to finish over the top of the Reds in the last 20 minutes, and it really came down to three All Blacks for me. Samisoni Takiahau at hooker, Samipeni Finau coming on to shore up the loose forward mix, and then also Tupovai coming on in the second row. I think that injection of All Black class from the bench is kind of what got the Chiefs home, but it just felt a little bit like they were mixing up their options well. The 50-50s were going their way. They kicked a little bit more astutely. Some of their bombs from Damian McKenzie were very well timed, and look, they took advantage of that one-man overlap that they had. It was 15 on 14. That helped wear out the Reds when they were down a man in the bin, but ultimately not convinced from that game that the Reds wouldn't win a rematch on a fast, dry track in Brisbane. I guess time will tell. Now, for me, the game of the weekend turned out to be Moana Pacifica versus the Waratahs on the North Shore in Auckland. I just had to go back to history. Moana Pacifica have never won two in a row. So I feared after their monumental exertion against the Crusaders last week, getting that incredible win in Christchurch, that they might be a little bit flat. And frankly, I felt my prediction was accurate. The Waratahs raced out to a very healthy lead. Moana Pacifica did look flat. They were inaccurate. They were turning over too much ball. They were giving away penalties. But I am telling you, these boys are the best second half team in the competition. They were able to peel back the score a little bit, put some tries together in the first half, but it was the second half where they took off like a rocket and in the end won by a very healthy margin. This was special. This was magical. There were only about 5,000 people there on the North Shore of Auckland. It sounded like 20,000 people. I mean, this was really a coming-of-age performance. Backing up from that win over the Crusaders, Moana Pacifica got into the top 6 off the back of this win. I mean, that's huge. They were the cellar dwellers. They were 12. And you just got the feeling from that second half, if they can keep playing like that, they are going to make a run at the playoffs. Now, who would have thought that at the start of the season? We thought they were a one-man team with Ardie Savea, but no, Paia, Miracle Failangi, when he comes back, is just phenomenal. Pellegrini has been great at 10. Tomoe Falau is a great young winger. He gives a lot of toe out there on the wing and a pretty decent kicking game. They're just, I think, more balanced than people expected. And if they can harness the emotion and continue in this vein of form, they're going to go pretty far in the competition. I must say, I felt New South Wales really fell off the pace in the second half. They were their own worst enemies. They started to give away penalties. And very simply, the defense fell apart for them. It was so organized at times in the first half. It looked shambolic in the second half, but that came down to Moana Pacifica pressure. So that was definitely the performance of the weekend from Ardie Savea's men. Amazing to see them back it up. 2 wins in a row. It hasn't happened before. And that's why I felt the Waratahs would win. I have to change the way I look at this team now. Maybe they can be more consistent. I'm going to keep an open mind. Well, there was also history made over in Fiji and Suva. The Crusaders cut their maiden win against the Drua in Fiji. Kind of incredible to think that they haven't beaten Fiji over there. Well, what do you put it down to? I think that Noah Hotham is playing at an All Black level for the Crusaders. I think his sniping up the guts around the middle of the park was just brilliant in Suva. He really got the Crusaders on the front foot repeatedly. Now, Sevu Reece, there was a big question mark over him starting his first game at center. How did he go? I think he went all right. He was maybe a little bit quiet, but he certainly, didn't make too many errors in midfield defensively, nothing too glaring. And if you look at the week before against Moana Pasifika, Levi Amua probably didn't cover himself in glory at 13. A lot of tries were leaked through that midfield channel. That looked much stronger this week. There was just a general feeling of conviction, sense of a snapback performance from the Crusaders, a sense of, hey, we've been tracking pretty well this season. Last week was an anomaly. Let's flush the toilet, as Shag Hansen would say. Let's put that behind us. Definitely a clean start from the Crusaders. They looked more like a team who is going to be vying for the semifinals. The Drua, man, they just couldn't break the line. They could not get over the gain line. They were trapped behind it. And I think you also have to look at defense again in this game as being really telling. A couple weeks back, the Crusaders took on the Blues at Eden Park, and that was where we saw a huge lift in their defensive intensity. Well, this performance was more like it. They really brought the D, and the Fijians they couldn't really fire a shot at times. A couple late tries, but in the first half it was pretty much a shutout. You started thinking this could be a game where the Fijians didn't score at all. That wasn't the case. They did get some points on the board, but really consolation points. This was actually a pretty heavy, emphatic win. Just business as usual for the Crusaders, what we're used to. Someone like Will Jordan was putting in a solid shift without being spectacular. Ethan Blackadder actually was out there on the field. He looked solid. Yeah, I think just better work at the breakdown, better ball protection, better ball security. All the stuff that the Crusaders normally do well, they did this week. Interestingly, Moana, the little hooker, he came on, may have played better than Cody Taylor. Cody Taylor's still coming back from injury, but good value from the bench today from the Crusaders. Although I must say, James O'Connor has gone off the boil just a little bit. He started the season so well. Still think he has great value coming off the bench. But certainly seeing how Taha Kemera ran the show in Fiji, I don't think anyone else should be wearing that 10 jersey. I think they've got to go with this young fella and bring O'Connor on with his experience. That's what I think is the best formula, and this game really just reinforced that for me. Now, the game that many of you were looking forward to, the Blues versus the Hurricanes at Eden Park, turned out to be a bit of a snooze fest, to be honest with you. I was not impressed with this game. Look at that scoreline. A 1-point win, much needed for the Blues. And look, I'm not convinced the Blues are the better team. I just think they had their backs up against the wall more here at home. If they didn't win this game, it was pretty much lights out for their season. They're still in dire straits, but now they're alive, at least. Hurricanes are out of the top 6, but I think they've got just a little bit more breathing room. The Blues needed that win. It was a life and death situation. Why did they win? I think you have to look at Beauden Barrett coming back. Provided more composure, provided more assured goal kicking. I talked about Hohapa's goal kicking for the Hurricanes. I talked about that in the preview for this game. I sounded a note of caution. That could be a factor for the Canes. I think it was today. He had a bit of a wild miss early on, and that was actually the difference in the points. If he'd made that kick, Canes could have won. This went down to the wire. I mean, obviously a 1-point win is not emphatic. If they played for a few more minutes, it could easily have been a Hurricanes win. It really was a seesaw game. Neither team ever really imposed their willpower on the other team fully. It was often one step forward, 2 steps back for both of these teams. And for the Hurricanes, even someone like Duplessis Karifi, who has been a turnover merchant this year and pretty much unstoppable, maybe just a little bit off with his timing today, just a little bit off color overall, the Hurricanes pack compared to how it's been performing. And they just didn't quite fire like they have. Certainly nothing like the 57-12 victory last week against the Waratahs. But we talked about this in the comments, guys. A lot of you predicted the Canes are going to blow hot and cold. Man, they're like the Wellington weather. It's up and down. Well, that is what happened. They very much came back down to earth this week. And onwards and upwards for them. I still think the Canes probably have the more upside of these two teams. But the Blues do look much better with Beauden Barrett back in the saddle. Classy kicking performance from him. If I had to put it down to one factor, honestly, I would just say that the Blues had the better goal kicker. They had the better sharpshooter today. It was really that kind of narrow a margin. So what do you guys think? Think the Blues can turn the season around from here? Did that give you enough hope that this was an inflection point? Or was this just a do-or-die performance and they're going to go back to their losing ways? That's probably where I'm leaning. I still think the Hurricanes will put some more wins together, and I think they'll be in the top 6 towards the end of the season, despite this result. Well, the Force versus the Highlanders more or less went how I expected it to. The Force were too good at home, and the Highlanders actually had some pretty good finishing. They looked better at the set piece with Ethan de Groot back in there, but they're just missing a little something. I think they're just missing 1 or 2 more star players, 1 or 2 more All Blacks, and this could be a different team. They have quality out there, but that cutting edge, it's just not there. But full credit to the Force. Cesano was terrific out there. I mentioned him in the preview for this game. One of the best sevens running around the competition. He scored a try early on that really set the tone for the Force. Just felt they're a little bit more accurate overall at the set piece, at the breakdown, and just did the basics well. This was nothing flashy. It was kind of rugby 101. A lot of rolling mauls, a lot of set plays off scrum, and probably on the balance of things, the Force deserved it just from doing the basics a little bit better. I don't think the Highlanders are really in contention at this point. I think they are going to drop pretty far out of the top 6. So speaking of the table, let's take a look at it. Here's how it stands. So obviously the Reds have fallen from number 1. That was temporary. The Chiefs kind of leapfrogged them there. That's how it is, guys. Well, I'm looking forward to round 9, and I will be back to preview that very soon. Please like and subscribe. Whew, I'm exhausted from all that rugby. That was a lot of games. That was 5 games. Hell of a weekend, though, and I certainly can't wait for next week. Things are heating up. I'll catch you next week for another one, guys. Take it easy. Bye for now.